city of Denver, the state of Colorado, you guys have been fucking amazing for the last 10 years.
Welcome to the Mile High Hockey Lab.
Hello and welcome to the Mile High Hockey Lab. My name is Adrian Hernandez. I am your host from milehighhockey.com. We are here to talk all things Colorado Avalanche. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you are here listening or watching, please like, subscribe, follow, and share with your fellow Avalanche fans. It goes a long way for little guys like us to get our stuff out there and be heard by Avalanche fans like you all over the world. So before I even get crazy and start introducing the panel, which is awesome as usual, by the way, I'm going to give away these tickets because I have a tendency to forget the very important thing that I'm supposed to do on this show. So as usual, I got my trusty wheel. Now, guys, let's talk about this though. 59 entries into this ticket giveaway. It's almost like we were giving tickets away to Avs versus Red Wings or something.
Almost.
Yeah, almost exactly. So let's spin this flipping wheel and let's find out who's winning 2 tickets to the Avalanche and Red Wings game coming up.
Look at you being on top of things.
Right?
Look at you. I don't have to manage. I don't have to do my job. Why am I here? I'm just
Look at us go. Oh, who's it going to be? Tony Billa. Tony. Hey, Tony. Congratulations, Tony. Wow. I will reach out to you just right after the show and let you know that you've won. If you're not listening right now and celebrating, you'll be celebrating soon. So that's 2 tickets to the Colorado Avalanche versus Detroit Red Wings. And let me double check the date on that because that's quite a thing. March 6th at 7:30 p.m. So sorry we couldn't get all 51 of you tickets. We would have if we could have. But just know that last night we had someone that was at the game due to a ticket giveaway from the Mile High Hockey Lab. So if you like free Avs hockey, please smash that follow button, that like and subscribe, and share with your fellow Avalanche fans. Okay, now that's done. Let's talk about hockey. There's a lot really to talk about because it's been 2 weeks since our last episode. Coincidentally, my child was born later that same or the day after our most recent.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Yeah, one more Avalanche fan, at least for now, until somebody was funny and said, just wait until they say, Dad, I love the Red Wings. And I said, yes, sometimes that's how it goes. Honestly, that one wouldn't be too bad these days. But so let's talk just kind of what's happened recently, and then we'll take a little bit of a look ahead. And then, Jacob, you haven't been here for this yet, but we have a new segment called the Breakaway Challenge, and we've added a time limit since trying last week, and Ezra went last, and he was not too pleased. So we have a topic for that, and then if you win the Breakaway Challenge, you get to introduce your own topic, and then we'll do the bold predictions to close the show. So I'll start with you, Evan, Mr. Managing Editor. Which victory for the Colorado Avalanche, and there's been a few. Ezra, you were so close with your bold prediction last week. So close. But which win impressed you more of these 2? The victory over St. Louis or the last night's overtime victory over the Islanders?
Yeah, I think both are obviously great wins, and I think very different wins.
Exactly.
And shout out to the guy that did win our tickets in the first giveaway for last night because he got a real good game to go see.
Yeah, he did.
That's for sure. But I am going to go with that St. Louis game, and I think for a couple different reasons. Is one, that was one of the first games of the year, at least that I can remember, where the Avs really have to dig deep, and kind of grit their way to a win. And from what we've seen from this team so far, there have been instances where you wonder if they can do that or not.
Yeah.
If they're too top heavy, if McKinnon can score 30 points a month, awesome, great, but it's not the Nathan McKinnon Avalanches. So if you can get that help behind you and get that gritty win, like a Miles Wood goal there at the very end, a dirty win on a faceoff by Ryan Johansson, playoff by Nichushkin to Taves. Like those are wins that are ultimately you're going to look back on and you're going to say that that made a difference at the end of our season. And I think that win really shows that.
Yeah, and I like that you point out the different ways they won in comparing these two games. And Jacob, I'm going to send this one to you because you wrote the preview on milehighhockey.com, and I wonder, because I felt the same sentiment going into this. Your preview headline was "Inconsistent Avalanche Look for Revenge in St. Louis." Now, I believe that was after they gave up 5 unanswered goals to the Coyotes, and we were kind of all panicking, myself included, apparently. So tell me, like, what's your take on that game after the dust is settled?
It's not quite a throwaway game because I think that it was kind of emblematic of some larger issues they've had this year.
Yeah.
But in a sense, it is kind of a throwaway game because it's really just one bad period, right? You get bull rushed, kind of, stuff happens, and you just kind of chalk it up to bad luck, wrong place, wrong time, that type of stuff. So I think the larger picture is the Avs are generally fine. There's a lot of work around the edges. They're not, this is not like clearly the best team in the NHL, like, our sky high expectations are as Avs fans. But, you want to pull up any metric that you can. They're, a top 6, top 7, top 8 team in the NHL right now, which, like, if the team is far from perfect and it's still a top 8 team, I'm pretty happy.
Yeah. And I think I tweeted that out after my, overblown reaction to their loss was, if I'm overreacting, it's their fault because they're the ones that set the standard. I'm just sitting here trying to hold them to it, as well as I'm sure what we fans who were kind of echoing sentiments were saying it sounded exactly like the room did after the game. And I'm sure Bednar himself even had some notes for himself as well as the rest of the team. When you give up 5 unanswered goals, that's called being a professional. So I don't think it's crazy for fans to react the way they did. However, here we are. The Avalanche have since pretty much said, okay, shut up with all that. We're a dominant team. We have Nathan MacKinnon, who should probably win the Hart this year if we had it our way. But Ezra, tell me if there was a award, and tell me if there is an award like this, but there's the 6th man of the year in the NBA. Feels like there should be an award like that in hockey, and it would go to Val Nichushkin. And is he Colorado's X factor?
Oh man, yeah. I mean, yeah. If you're talking about like the best guy who's not one of the best guys, that's Val for sure. He's that near goal that drew the penalty in the end of the game last night was insane.
Yeah,
I don't know how he trucked through 2 guys at once like that. I'm sure everybody knows what I'm talking about. But the driving down the ice through 2 defenders, carrying the puck, getting it on net so MacKinnon can push the goalie into the goal.
Yeah.
It was incredible. It was incredible, and I feel like that's emblematic of Val. He does like all the hard work so that MacKinnon can go score. And he obviously is putting up points himself with 2 power play goals last night. I believe he's 2nd in the NHL in power play goals. I don't remember the actual number, but he's a dominant force. And I do think of him as an X factor, because you're expecting a certain amount of production from MacKinnon, Rantanen, and Makar, and you're hoping for some production from your depth guys,
Yes.
As long as they come out even, right? You're expecting to win. But if you get consistent scoring from the tier right below Nate, Kale, and Mikko, then you're in good shape. And that's kind of what we've been complaining about with the team overall, the second line or whoever, the middle 6, I guess, not being consistent enough. But Val's been consistent.
Are we
top 5 minutes.
I was going to say, are we even right about that? Because you're right. Because especially when Arturi Lehkonen returns to the lineup, that paints the picture of this second line in a whole new way. Mm-hmm. You might not have the second line center statistically that you want, but you might have the 2 best left and right wingers statistically on your second line. And I did a tweet. Listen to that. I sent out I sent out a tweet today, and I ranked the Avs forwards in points per 60, and it goes MacKinnon, Rantanen, Nichushkin, Lehkonen, coincidentally, Colton, and Drouin. That's the top 6. And MacKinnon with a whopping 4.23 points per 60. So again, MacKinnon for Hart. I almost titled the episode today MacKinnon for Hart. There's one of the reasons why, but we'll get there when we get there. I find it absolutely fantastic that someone like Valeri Nichushkin for the time being is going under the radar, because that typically leads to him just absolutely going off. Evan, I want to send this one to you because we got a big game coming up against Dallas, who's probably yelling at the sky whenever they hear the name Valeri Nichushkin these days. But what are you expecting from that matchup? It's a big division game.
Yeah, huge division game. I think it is arguably up there with one of the games of the year. And when you look at teams that the Avs have struggled against so far this season, it has been teams in their division who are at least at par with them in competition. Winnipeg's gotten to them twice this year. Dallas got to them in the first half of the last game that they played in Dallas. Now the Avs did come back and win that game, and I think that was, I remember I was still in England when this happened. So I remember waking up and seeing all those reactions and I'm just like, oh my gosh, wow. So I think fans are hoping for a similar performance, but more rounded performance, a 60-minute performance. And that's going to come from all the guys that we've already mentioned, right? Your Nathan McKinnon's, your Valeri Nichushkin's, all that. But it's also going to come from in the net too, with Alexander Georgiev. And I know he did not have his best night last night against the Isles. And sometimes that's going to happen, right? And, you know, he won that St. Louis game. I think that is something that I will say. He did win that St. Louis game, kept them in it, but he almost lost the Isles game. So I think it kind of just shows the duality of the team, right? You can have great goaltending one night, and sometimes you might not. But on that same night, you might not have good offense, but then on the other night, you might have some great offense. Yeah. So it's just a matter of being able to put the two together, really, at this point.
Yeah, and that's going to be the key in a big game against Dallas, is putting those two things together so that they can actually dominate in a way that maybe sends a statement to the rest of the division. Obviously, it's still early in the season, but right about now is when, I mean, most big talks or big head talkers in the NHL world say you kind of know about a team around this Christmas area, and then you see what they do when the trade deadline approaches. And then you kind of have a full picture, at least what you think is going to be how they play going into the playoffs. I think the Avalanche are pretty much as far away from fully formed as a team can be in this time frame, but here they are still among the best teams in the league in terms of wins. So we'll see how the Avalanche fare against Dallas. They also have the Boston Bruins and the Golden Knights coming to town next week. Jacob, which one of those matchups is more intriguing to you and why?
That's a tough one. I mean, Vegas is always intriguing because, you know, they're the big bad guy until we can meet them again in the playoffs and, you know, avenge the worst playoff loss, you know, the Avs have had since the 2000s. But for me, it's Boston because it's just fascinating how they keep this machine running. Like no matter what parts fall off, you know, Pasternak is still there. He's going to score, I don't know, 150, 200 points this year. Just drag them to first place. And so, like, I need to see what this is like, this aging team that somehow stays ageless.
Yeah, aging team that stays ageless.
I mean, it's one of the best measuring stick games just in general that the Avs can have. You know, the Bruins have been through every battle you can imagine.
Well, it's funny, too, because every single year you're like, oh, well, there went that guy. And so the Bruins might kind of take a digger this season. But that just doesn't ever seem to happen. Ezra, what is your answer to that question? You like looking forward to that Bruins game or that Golden Knights game more?
I'm looking forward to both. But yeah, I think I agree with Jacob on the Bruins. I mean, it is something where, you know, I feel like the general perception in the league in terms of like what generally media and fans are talking about is the East is strong and the West is kind of a mess. And I'd love to see what the Avs do against a team that's leading the East, because I feel like the West may have a bunch of weak teams and some teams that are struggling to prove that they are, you know, consistently the best teams in the league. And the East has the Bruins and the Rangers, and that's great. They're good teams, but like on paper, you look at the West teams and you're like, that's the stronger team. Yeah. So I'd love to see what that looks like. I'm excited for that game.
That's such a good point, because there has always been that weird, like, I guess, dichotomy between the East and the West, where it's like one every single season, it seems like one is top heavy and the other is just stacked, and it kind of goes back and forth. You've seen kind of some of the Eastern, I guess, Titans that were like the Blackhawks and the Penguins and the Capitals. They've all kind of began that next chapter after their heyday. So it kind of makes sense now that these Western teams that were sort of there when those teams were dominating are now kind of pressing for cups. Dallas being one of them. We got plenty of takers in the West, I think, that we, should be worried about as Avs fans. We got Nathan from DNVR on the chat says both as dubs for real. Love that.
Love it. Love it, Rudo. Thanks for listening.
Yeah, thanks for tuning in, Rudo. We appreciate you, man. So, that leads me to my last topic, and I'm glad we rattled those 5 off really quick because I want to spend a lot of time on this just for my own glory.
Oh, I wonder what it is.
So Jonathan Drouin, my guy, has 10 points in 10 games. And, I'll send this one to you first, Evan, and we'll kind of all have a go at this one, I think. But has your expectation for Jonathan Drouin changed based on his performance? And if you could give me your prediction on a point total this season.
I don't know if the expectation has necessarily changed. I think it's more so just feeling more belief and hope in what those expectations were, I mean, you look at the opening, 12, 15 games that Drouin had, and it was just it was not working, right? It was taking him time to get balanced, get right, moving up and down the lineup, getting scratched from games. And you have people really questioning on what's going to happen with him, right? I think with the absence of Lehkonen, that he's kind of stepped up into this new unique role of kind of floating between the top 6. But I think he has really found something again with McKinnon and Rantanen. I mean, I look at that power play, or was it a power play goal? Regardless, his goal last night against the Islanders, where, of course, McKinnon and Rantanen connecting, doing their thing. And they're all dragging the defenders with them, right? Yeah. They're all puck watching, while Drouin is doing exactly what he needs to be doing and getting towards the net. And while he didn't get the puck at the net, he gets it in a great shooting spot and he takes his chance. Yeah. And I think if that had happened a month or two ago, he doesn't take that shot. He's going to find a way to try and move it back to Rantanen or find McKinnon around the back of the net. But he has the confidence again. And I think that that's something that a lot of fans were hoping to see, and I think are glad to see. And 10 points in 10 games now at this point. He's going to continue to rack up points as long as Nathan McKinnon keeps being Nathan freaking McKinnon.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I do like the idea of of at least 40 points. I think that is like what a lot of people were hoping to get, and I think at least 40 points out of an 800K player, I'll take that. If he gets to 50, oh my goodness, that's a steal.
So there's 76 games left. If he plays all of them, he's averaging about
76.
Sorry, geez, 46. Jesus, So it's been some late nights for the new dad over here. 46 games left. He's averaging a half a point a game as is right now. So if you do the math there, that's 23. Add that to his 18, you get about 41 points, right? So that's about right to me too. I just wonder how, I guess I should have the numbers on this if I'm going to bring it to the table, but this brief and most recent window, he's probably at a higher clip. You know what I mean? That had what he's at now was pushed up by this 10 points in 10 games, no doubt about it. Mm-hmm. So I wonder, where is his consistency level? Where does that land? Ezra, tell me what you think of Jonathan Drouin so far, and what do you think of that?
I love Drouin right now. I mean, I think Evan spoke to it really well. The confidence he's playing with, just to see him shoot that shot and to shoot it in a way that he doesn't typically do. We've seen a lot of wrist shots from Drouin. We've seen a lot of taking his time to pick his spots, but that was just the puck's on my stick, I'm going to snap this thing in there. And it was a perfect shot, and it caught everyone off guard, especially, the goaltender. But it was emblematic of what I've seen from him lately, which is just he knows that he's valued and that he's important and that his decisions are going to be good. And I love seeing what he's doing on the power play specifically, because I think it's freed up his whole even strength game too, where he's an important part of the top unit. He's not just the guy who's out there because somebody's injured. He is making things happen. And I think, for a guy who's had confidence issues and a guy who's had issues with the Montreal media, being on his case all the time, to look like he's confident, to be playing confident, that's huge, and it's really exciting. And I think he can. To speak to your point about the points per game pace, he's not going to score 10 points every 10 games, but I don't think he's a half point a game player either. I think he's somewhere in the middle. I think it would not surprise me if he ends up, through the next 76 games, you said? No, 46 games. If he ends up with, 30 points more than he ends up with 20 points, I think that feels like a realistic expectation to get 30 points in the next 40 games rather than, the half point pace that he's been at for the whole season.
I agree, but if there were 76 games, he'd be freaking 40, 50, or
that's 60, right,
70 point score. So I'm just kidding. But yeah, but like that was kind of my point, and I'm glad you picked up on that. Is like it's got to be somewhere between that point per game pace and that half a point per game pace. Obviously, it's probably not dead in the middle, but say it is. You're totally right. He's in that 45, 50 points, and then if he's your, I guess, fill in for the top line, that second line, it looks real nice. And that's, that could be what sets the Avalanche apart in crucial times when you're chasing that Stanley Cup. Because this, like I said, this Avalanche team is pretty much as far from formed as a cup contender can be. And yet here they are dominating and still atop the league in terms of wins. So Jacob, I haven't asked you yet. So we're climbing in points predictions here from Evan to Ezra. Where do you stand on Jonathan Drouin? And I'll double back to the first question. Has your expectation changed for him?
Yeah, my expectation has changed. I never bought him as a top line guy. I thought he was a middle six type. I kind of thought that he would settle on the third line with Colton and Wood. Yeah, I thought that his playmaking skill might be a nice complement to how they shoot the puck. And these last 10 games, I mean, the dude looks like he belongs out there with all of the best players on the Avs. And the question of how many points he's going to get, it's entirely dependent on whether or not he's going to be playing next to Nathan MacKinnon. Because if he's going to be playing next to MacKinnon the rest of the year, then I think 60's in play. I really do.
Wow.
With what MacKinnon is doing right now and how well Drouin is playing, I don't really see, unless MacKinnon drops off. If he's attached next to him, I think that's about his ceiling right now.
Well, and
I was going to say, Evan. A MacKinnon drop off is not no points; it is 2 points rather than
exactly. Yeah, that's true. It's really true. And Evan, you mentioned too, like you saw a lot of confidence in Drouin when he took that shot and scored that goal, coincidentally with MacKinnon behind the net ducking for cover. I noticed. So I didn't
catch that.
I don't know if MacKinnon had as much confidence in Drouin as Drouin had in himself. But it worked out. But the other play that stood out to me was, I think it was Nichushkin's first goal. He skates into the zone. He kind of holds up net side, and the whole defense kind of sucks towards him, and he finds Sammy G on a beautiful cross ice pass, and he can't put it in, but then there's the rebound for big Val Nichushkin, who's waiting just to tuck it in. And I see confidence in that play too, because it's risky to do a cross ice pass, especially when the D is collapsing on you. If you turn the puck over and then something else happens, joke's on you. Not in that situation. He sent it over and it created a goal. So that's the kind of stuff. A goal and an assist in his last game is probably his best game as an Avalanche. Would you guys agree?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Yeah.
So I think to add to that really quick, it is his best game in an Avs uniform, not only because of that, but because he's defensively responsible now. He's working. He's working players off the puck on the wall, and he's made a lot of mental errors all season, and I think last night I can think of one, which is great. That's so much lower, Yeah,
exactly.
I just wanted to say it's like his whole game. It's not just the points.
Yeah, I agree. And that's him being in the top line speaks volumes to that, because he's going to be matched up with the best forwards for the other squad too when he's out there most times, especially if he's paired with MacKinnon. So he has to be defensively capable and sound, at least to a point. And like you said, he has to limit those mistakes. So, I'm just happy to see the guy kind of turning into what very hopeful fans like me thought he could be. I think right now he's kind of in the heyday of that. Hockey, sports in general are very fickle. So, success is fleeting, not going to get too carried away. but I do think that Jonathan Drouin has something going, and it is what we thought it might be right now. And if it can continue, this will be one of the best stories in the league going into the playoffs, because it'll be the two Halifax boys looking to win at the next level together, and that's going to be quite the topic. We'll hear about it in every single presser before every single round if the Avs continue to advance. So I look forward to that. I hope the rest of you Avalanche fans do as well. And if you enjoy what we just talked about over here about Jonathan Drouin, please head on over to our website. We have plenty of content surrounding the Jonathan Drouin experiment, as I've like to call it. I guess I got to update the experiment now.
I was going to say, I'm waiting for you to put another one up.
That's probably my next article, so stay tuned for that. But let's get into, and Jacob, welcome for the first time. Let's get into our breakaway challenge.
Breakaway challenge.
Okay, so here's how this works. I'm going to set forth a topic. I'm basically going to ask you to make several claims that support your, I guess, theory or opinion on the matter. Basically, you'll have about a minute to answer. Exactly a minute, Ezra. All right. I'm going to have a clock over here so everybody knows. It's going to be exactly a minute, and I'll give you a point for each claim that I find valid or well stated. This is a very, very much so not a democracy today. But you know, like I said in the last episode, it's basically around the horn, but it's Colorado Avalanche style. And then if you win, if you get the most points at the end of this breakaway challenge, you get to introduce the topic that we talk about next before our bold predictions. So, Evan, let's start with you, my friend. Was it you that won last week, right?
It was
Jackie won last week. So the reigning champ is not here to defend her throne, but we'll get her back on to do so. But let's talk about the topic here. So it's a burning topic among Avalanche fans. I feel the way I feel, and I'm sure you and I have a lot in common in terms of that. But Alexander Georgiev is the league's leader in terms of wins. I think still might change tonight. But simultaneously, he ranks 25th in goals averaged a game at 2.9 and 38th in save percentage with a 8 point. I think that's supposed to be a 0.898 save percentage. Are these numbers telling the whole story with Georgiev, and are you concerned? The clock starts. Oh, wait a minute. Now.
No, the numbers do not tell the entire story, and no, I'm not concerned. And I think that has to do with a few reasons. One, this Avalanche team has proven before that they are not relying on goaltending to win every single night. This is how they won the Stanley Cup, and this is how they're going to do it. That's how they did it, running with Georgiev and Francouz, $5 million a year or something like that. With that being said, though, there have definitely been instances where he has fallen off. I mentioned it already with the Islanders game where he wasn't at his best. But also the team in front of him has not been doing well himself. Look at the St. Louis game. The team wasn't really there for him. But Georgiev did the job, right? He's doing exactly what he needs to be doing. The numbers just aren't really showing it for him, I think. So I think with that being said, he just needs to kind of get back into this groove, get Prosvetov in for a couple of games. It helped Georgiev with his mentality last time. It will do the same here when Provy gets in.
I love it. I give you 4 there. You got 4. I think I missed one, and then I kind of doubled up on one too. So you kind of got lucky, if you ask me. But yeah. I'm just kidding. No, I'm right there with you. I don't want to talk too much on what you said because I want to let everybody else go, and then we'll see kind of how it goes. But I got you there at 4 solid, valid points. Ezra, are you ready to rock and roll?
I'm ready.
All right, here we go. The clock starts now.
I am worried about Georgiev, and I'll tell you why. Because in the playoffs, you're playing every other night. And if he can't be the same guy every night, then it's going to be a real problem for these players in front of him. Yeah, a lot of these numbers are because the team in front of him has been poor, but also you have games like last night 2 nights ago or 2 games ago where he's just giving up goals, and you're like, what are these? You can't let Simon Holmstrom put in a shot from the far blue, from like basically the point over your glove on a breakaway 1-on-0 where the defender's like, hey, I took him to the outside for you, and all you have to do is just square up. And he's like, I'm square. It's in.
Yeah.
Like, what is it? I don't know. He is good. We've seen him be great, but he has to make sure that the floor is high enough that on his off nights, it's not a disaster.
That was excellent. Yeah, that's very well stated. Coincidentally, you guys are tied right now with 4 points apiece. Hopefully, we're not just ticking at a 4 point a minute pace. Hey,
I feel the pressure with a minute now. I'm not gonna lie, I feel it.
Oh, we're basically in the McKinnon zone if we're at 4 points per 60.
Yeah, that's right. I love it. All right, so Jacob, you're last, and this time going last is not quite as frustrating as going last to us last week. I'm sorry, Ezra, but okay, the clock starts. Are you ready to go?
Yes.
All right, the clock starts now.
So yeah, I'm with Ezra. I am worried about Georgiev. When I called the Avalanche inconsistent, he's the poster child for their inconsistency this year. We don't know who is showing up night to night with Georgiev, and I'm not the only one who's worried about Georgiev. Remember, they had that back-to-back at Winnipeg and versus San Jose. They started Prosvetov at Winnipeg so they could start Georgiev against San Jose. Bednar is clearly trying to get him going because he sees him struggling a little bit. I've got Money Puck up right now. Among goalies with 10 games played, he is 28th in goals saved above expected. The numbers don't always tell the whole story. Again, it's not a comprehensive thing. He hasn't been that exact goalie all year, but it does kind of show you that he's worked kind of both ends of the variance spectrum right now. And like Ezra said, you need a consistent goalie going into the playoffs. If the players aren't sure of what's going to go on behind them in the playoffs, they're going to start pressing. They're going to start making plays they don't normally make, and they're going to get out of structure.
Oh boy, that's 4-4.
I was gonna say, are we all on 4?
Yeah, that's 4-4. We got a 3-way tie.
15 seconds per sentence.
Yeah, on that McKinnon pace. All right. So I thought about this being a potential happenstance, and I didn't plan it like this. And I'm actually just gonna come up with this off the top of the nog. We're just gonna what is the best way to just have you say one thing and we decide who wins?
I already have my one thing. Rebuttal against both people here.
Okay, let's do the rebuttal. I love that. That's a good way to put it.
I like it.
Rebuttal. You get one. Let's do 30 seconds for your rebuttal.
Okay.
Ready?
I like it. Go ahead,
Evan. Here we go. Now,
I do agree with you all that we do need a consistent netminder, right? Kind of have that same kind of consistency. But look back at when the Avs won the Stanley Cup. Darcy Kemper was in and out of the lineup the entire time. And there were questions raised about him, I know, after Game 3 when he let in 6 goals against Tampa. And the team rallied around it, and they got through. Now, obviously, that's a much different team than this one today. Prosvetov is no Francouz, so we'll have to see, I guess.
You got one right at the end there. Right at the end there with the Prosvetov is no Francouz, because I agree with that. I think you're right in talking of, well, I don't want to steal these points. Okay, Ezra.
Yeah.
I don't want to steal your points. So here we go. You ready?
Yeah.
Bang.
That's exactly right. Like what I'm talking about is the floor, because we know that the ceiling is very high for Georgiev, just as the ceiling for Kemper was high, and honestly, the ceiling for Francouz is very high. The ceiling for Prosvetov, I don't know, but the floor for Georgiev right now is so much lower than the floor was for Kemper. Kemper, you knew you were going to get every save you should get, and then maybe a couple are going to sneak through here or there. But with Georgiev right now, you're like, you saw Andrew Cogliano tackle a guy to prevent him from shooting on a 2-on-1 because he's like, I don't trust this guy at all.
Oh man, that was good.
Yeah, you get the point for that one. Well done.
You saw Andrew Cogliano tackle a guy. He was so scared.
I will happily take my L on that one because of that.
Oh, okay. All right, Jacob, you are going to round this out. Let's hope.
Man, I don't know if I can beat the Andrew Cogliano tackle.
Yeah. All right, here we go, and time starts now.
So yeah, I mean, I agree with everything Ezra just said. The one thing I would push back on against Evan is that year Darcy Kemper, going back to Money Puck again, he was 5th in goals saved above the average that year, and so I get where you're coming from as far as like the injuries and also like him getting stabbed in the eye in the first round changed who he was as a goalie. And so he did have an inconsistent goalie, but that was a super team. And I don't think that we have a super team this year. And so, with a thinner margin for error, I think that you really need to have your goalie step up.
Well, That's beautiful. I couldn't have said it better myself, you gentlemen. But we have another 3-3 tie. So I'm just going to give it to the funniest line of the day, which was, Cogliano tackling a guy instead of letting the shot get on net.
Hey, I will say, I feel the pressure when it's now a minute. I did not feel the pressure when we last did this.
I like them.
But two, I think it's good conversation because there's definitely not a lot of times where we may have different views on topics around the Avs. So it's interesting conversation for sure to see where people are at.
Yeah, I agree.
Breakaway challenge.
That was the breakaway challenge, and here is Joe Sakic scoring on the breakaway for Team Canada. And you know what? You're totally right about that, Evan. And it's kind of fun when it's that quick because it makes you be very, very expeditious with your choice of words. And that is what we're supposed to do on, these entertainment platforms, is be pretty funny. So Ezra, thanks for the funny. That might be the like, the preview in the intro from now on, because that was just classic right there. Definitely getting clipped, to tell you that much. But so Ezra, you are the champion of the breakaway challenge, which means you get to introduce our next topic. So do you need some time, or you got one ready to go?
No, I'm ready to go. I think
Let's hear it.
I want to talk about Sam Girard. I mean, what an excellent return from absence, and I'm so happy to see him back. I think, obviously Girard's a huge piece of the team, and just in terms of like the emotional weight of knowing your friend's going through something, I'm glad that weight is off everyone's backs, and specifically his. And in terms of play on the ice, Sam Malinski was solid. I was happy with Sam Malinski, except a couple games he was not, but that's, the pangs of going through a rookie development arc.
Yeah.
But Sam Girard he's looking great. He's looking like his old self. And I love to see it. We talk about ceilings and floors with goaltenders. There's ceilings and floors with every player. And man, the ceiling for Girard might not be as high as people hoped it was when he first got to Colorado, but the floor is so high. I love it.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's a great way to put it. You might need to write a book called High Floor, Low Ceiling, or whatever. High floor, high ceiling.
Architectural digest.
Yeah. Actually, it's about hockey. But yeah, like that's a great way to put it, because the flightiness of a rookie defender is bound to make you pull your hair out. You're going to see, obviously, he has great stick handling. He's shown Malinski has shown flashes of. Evan mistaken him for Nathan McKinnon at one point. So it's like he's got the flash, but Girard has all that. And I think that's what you're speaking to when you talk about like his ceiling maybe not being as high as we perceived. It's because his style, he's kind of a flashy guy. And as he's grown as a professional, we're starting to see him more as kind of like an escape artist, and somebody who can apparently lay the body now, as we saw last night against the Islanders. So I'm with you. I'm so happy to see him back, and not that there's an appropriate time frame for anybody going into the players assistance program, but it's also nice to see him kind of make that a brief stay, just because I feel like it sheds light on him doing what was supposed to be done at the right time, to kind of expedite that process for himself and the rest of his crew. So I'm really excited to see him back. I think the Avalanche are a way better team defensively when he's on the ice. And I think what's awesome is Manson is also coming on right now as Sam Girard is making his comeback. So I think we see that pair really start to be a part of the feature that is the defensive group for the Colorado Avalanche. What do you think of that, Jacob?
Yeah, I mean, I think part of the issue with Girard is, like you alluded to, he's so flashy, so we expect all this big offensive performance, but he's just like a rock solid defensive defenseman who, gets to pucks, gets it out of the zone, and it's not like it's not something that you associate with a guy, that size. And it's really cool to see him back doing his thing. I'm happy for him. I'm happy for the Avs too. You kind of think about, they've gone through a lot, since they won the cup with Landeskog's injury, whatever happened with Nichushkin last year, and then Girard going into the players assistance program. Like, there's just kind of been a cloud hanging over this team. And so to, get your guy back and healthy and feeling good, feeling right, like himself, it's just got to be, uplift the whole locker room.
Yeah, that's a great point. Because it really has been, outside of hockey, the Avs have won plenty of games but shorthanded. And when you lose a guy like Sam Girard, who was a key piece to the Avalanche Stanley Cup, I don't care what anybody says about when he left due to injury in that cup run. He was a huge part of that team. And like you mentioned, Landeskog, that's still ongoing. We don't really know how that's going to sort out. So it is nice for the Avalanche to be on the happy side of some of this news. And hopefully that just is kind of the theme of 2024. As the Avalanche approach the middle months of the year and the playoffs, we should start to have more of these stories that give us hope and something to really look forward to. Not that there hasn't been stuff to cheer for, but the theme of this episode is that the Avalanche are really good, but they're not even the Avalanche that they're going to be in a few months. And that version of the Avalanche can be great, like this one is already kind of showing to be. So I'm totally stoked about it. Evan, what are your thoughts on Sam Girard's return?
Yeah, his return has been phenomenal. I mean, he has a point. He could be credited with 2, but his assist of an assist on the game winner against San Jose is also very recognizable. And I agree with everyone here that Girard does make a difference in the lineup. I mean, look what he did to Robert Bortuzzo last night.
Yeah, there's
half a foot difference there, and he takes down Bortuzzo. Now, that means that he is on IR, so hopefully he's okay.
Hopefully he's fine.
Right. But I mean, that's a big difference in this team. And I think, we talked about expectations earlier this episode when it comes to Jonathan Drouin, but I think expectations for Sam Girard is, one, praise him for getting the help that he needs. That is always a great number one step. You can't be a great hockey player if you're not a great you. So that is always great. For those of you listening, if you do need mental health help, reach out to a friend, do all of that, take care of yourself, and then enjoy some Colorado Avalanche hockey to go with it. I think that's always some good free therapy, or not, depending on how they're doing. But alas, I digress.
That's something else to think about. That's at least that.
I digress. My point is that I agree that Girard does bring a difference to the defense, and I think it also does help because the defense is making a statement right now. You mentioned Josh Manson right now having a great offensive kind of resurgence, I guess you could say. It helps when he stays healthy all season, unlike last year. I don't know how much we would see them together, though, Manson and Girard, just because Byram is there, and I don't know if they really want Byram on the third pairing with Jack Johnson. But regardless, I'm really looking forward to see what he can do. I think when he scores his first goal back, we're going to see a great reaction, not just from him, but his entire teammate, his entire team.
Yeah. And, it's that will be an awesome moment, because as much as, Sammy's not necessarily known for his goal scoring, that kind of is one of the little moments. He's only got a goal so far this season. So getting him back and then getting another goal here in the near future would absolutely be huge for his confidence. Ezra, do you have any closing comments on your Sam Girard topic? Congratulations, Mr. Breakaway Challenge winner.
Thank you. No, I think everybody, we're all in agreement, and just, it's a wonderful thing to see somebody take care of themselves and come back better for it. And that should be, if anybody's taking a lesson on their own mental health from hockey players, let that be the one.
Yeah. I totally agree. I don't necessarily know that they should be doing that, but if they are, exactly, that's a good example for you to have. Well, that leaves us to our very last segment of the show, which I don't know, used to be my favorite. Now it might be my second favorite after the Breakaway Challenge, but let's talk about it.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
Let's call that bold talk.
All right, this is Bold Predictions, as also known as Bold Hopes at times. But we had a ding last week, but Jackie is not here to claim her ding. But check this out. Jackie said, I think Nathan MacKinnon's going to have a hat trick before Christmas. She was right. Not only was she right, and it happened the next day. And not only did he score 3, but he scored 4.
The Mac trick, as Altitude has been calling it, which I like.
The Mac trick. Oh, that's glorious. I'm sure that'll be on a shirt in like 2 weeks. But I just was so impressed with Jackie for doing that. And I totally forgot to give her a shout out on the socials. So right after this episode is done, we're gonna all have to blast her and say, "Hey, you were not here to catch all the roses that we threw at your feet for being right about Nathan MacKinnon and his hat trick." But Jackie, one more time, if you're out there listening, there's your ding. I gave you 4 earlier for the 4 goals. So that was Jackie's bold prediction, and she was, in fact, correct. My bold prediction was that there would be more points from defenders than there would be from forwards. And based on MacKinnon having 4 goals the night after, that was wrong. So that was very, very wrong. So that's why we call them bold predictions. Ezra, your bold prediction last week was that the Avalanche would go undefeated. And as I alluded to at the beginning of the show, you were so stinking close to being right about that. But they lost 1 game, and they probably should have won 5-0. Mm-hmm. So I feel like giving you a half ding, and I feel like the Avalanche owe you a ding. So if you run into any of them, make sure they know that like you lost the bold predictions just because they gave up 5 unanswered goals. And let's see, Evan, your bold prediction that was that Curtis McDermott would score a goal. He did not do that. And not to dump on the guy, but I was glad that he didn't play in order to not score those goals. That was something that I saw and thought, nice, this roster is actually rounding out in a way that I can appreciate. So let's talk now this week's bold predictions. Let's start with you, Jacob, because it's been a while.
Yeah. So my bold prediction is it's been a while since Logan O'Connor scored a shorthanded goal. So I think he gets back on the horse this week.
Well, and he almost had one against the Islanders. And what's funny is I don't know if you guys watched on Altitude, but Mosier dang near like summoned it. He was like, it's been a while since Logan O'Connor's had a shorthanded goal. And that's a really good impression of him, by the way. And there he goes, streaking up. And he actually had a 2-on-1 with Cogliano. I thought maybe he should have passed it in that situation. So I love that bold prediction, Jacob. Let me hammer that in here to the tweet machine. But while I do that, Evan, what's your bold prediction this week?
Yeah, my bold, I've been kind of sitting on it. I have an idea of who it's going to be about, but I don't know exactly how to word it. And I know we went over it earlier, is that the defense has been stepping up a lot on offense, in particular Josh Manson. Jack Johnson even had a few good looks last night, but just missed the net. So I would like to think that there are points coming from defensemen here in the coming games. And when you look at Dallas in particular, Boston and Vegas next week, you're going to need some points from depth guys. So I'm going to say the defense records as a whole, the defense records 6 points.
D to get 6 points. Makar might do that alone in like 3 games.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, that's why I was like, my original prediction was going to be like 3 to 4, and then I was like, wait, Makar exists. What am I? I should up that number. Well, and so we'll say 6.
I like that. And it seems like the Avs power play is starting to hum a little bit too. So like if that's the case, you're right. Like it could come from Cale Makar single-handedly, and that would be a pretty awesome thing and ding for you to have next week.
I'd be fine with that too.
Yeah. So let's hammer that into the tweet machine. And while I do so, Ezra, what is your bold prediction this week?
Well, yeah, I just want to touch on the power play really quick because they managed to not have any shots in the first 2 attempts last night, despite dominating possession. And I'm like, I like the new wrinkle with MacKinnon coming around behind the net and making something happen. So I'm going to stick with that. I'm going to say we get power play goals in every game this week.
I like that. And honestly, like that's the kind of thing that makes a team go on a heater, which they kind of feel like they are in the midst of already. But if a power play gets hot, it steals games. You get 1 or 2, and all of a sudden the score's tied, and you're in overtime, and then you're back to having 3 guys on the ice. And I think the Avalanche with just 3 guys on the ice are probably better than any other team. Maybe we'll see with just 3 guys on the ice. So I think that's a great one. I hope you're right, because that will also bode well for Nathan MacKinnon and his campaign for the Hart Trophy, which we didn't really talk about. I just kept pointing at that.
Let's talk about it afterwards.
Yeah, we'll talk about it here in a second. So I got Evan. Yours was that the defense will score 6 points this week. and Ezra, you said that the Avalanche will have a power play goal in every game, right?
That's right.
I'm not screwing that up. Awesome.
Yep.
All right, so that just leaves me, and I have been just throwing darts in the dark, apparently, stuff that's not even remotely possible, I guess. So I'm gonna try and narrow my mind onto one that actually makes sense, and I think it's gonna be that you'll see a game where we get a goal from Mikko, McKinnon, Nichushkin, and one other person. We'll put it that way. Okay. So I'll go 3 of 4. We'll have a game in this next week where all 3, McKinnon, Nichushkin, and Rantanen will score, and then there will be a 4th goal scorer in that game as well. So
I like it.
Yeah,
it's pretty plausible.
It's pretty plausible. That says the guy who wants 6 points from the D.
Hey, there's a reason why they're called bold predictions. Just saying.
Okay, so I think that covers all our bold predictions. What we do, folks, if you don't know, tune in next week. We will double back to those bold predictions like we did to start the segment, and we will talk about whether or not we were correct. And if we're wrong, like I usually am, will tell me how stupid I am, and it's fun. So let's talk then about Nathan MacKinnon and his campaign for the Hart Trophy. Evan, you go.
Hey. At this point, I'm just like, what can't he do to win it, right? Like, I know this is taking 2023 as a whole in. Side note, Happy New Year's, everybody, because we normally say that. He scored the most points in 2023. That came with a lot of points at the end of the season last year. But at the start of this season, I mean, he set a new franchise record for the most points in a month. He nearly had 2 points a game. And that's just stupid ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I mean, of course, the guy who has owned the trophy for the last, X number of years now, Connor McDavid, has, for lack of a better term, kind of struggled to start this year. That comes with Edmonton's own issues and struggles that they've had. And I really feel like at that point, just like, who's going to stop him? I guess Nikita Kucherov maybe, but Tampa's also not doing great on their own either. They are in the middle of a wild card race in the East, while the Avs are, despite what some fans may say online, are still cruising along at the top of the Central and towards the top of the Western Conference. So I feel like the only thing that is going to stop Nathan MacKinnon is knock on wood, injury, and that's. I think that's really the only thing, and that's kind of it. So at this point, I'm just like, why not? Right?
Yeah.
He's done his time, and his time is now.
Yeah, he's done his time. It's so sad that we put it that way, but that's like such a great way to put it, because he's been a shoo-in in certain scenarios. I mean, the guy, this season though is setting forth quite the portfolio of reasons to put him there. Ezra, tell me what you think. And is there someone else kind of out there in the league that we are being very disrespectful to right now by disregarding?
Well, I mean, I think it's really come down to MacKinnon, Kucherov, and maybe McDavid's gonna, launch himself back into the scoring race. He's 8 points back at MacKinnon right now, and McKinnon's 2 points back at Kucherov. So, I don't know. I'm trying to think of another person who might factor into it. And my only thought is David Pastrnak, who's scoring at a ridiculous clip as usual. And, if he single-handedly wills Boston to the Eastern Conference lead, or Nikita Kucherov single-handedly wills Tampa into the playoffs, maybe there's a little bit of Eastern bias that, goes one of their ways and keeps MacKinnon out of it. We know that happened, obviously, with MacKinnon and Taylor Hall competing for the Hart a couple years back. But I think the national conversation right now has shifted a little bit towards MacKinnon for the MVP. You see it in a lot of articles online, him being mentioned. And I think that's huge, when somebody's campaign for Hart, and I know that he's not campaigning, but like when the media starts,
we are
for Hart, in the middle of the season, and they keep up their pace of play, usually they end up winning it, because the preseason predictions were fun, and everybody was like, "Oh yeah, these Kucherov and McDavid, these are your guys." And seeing somebody in the middle of the season come topple that's usually a guy who rides that wave of I don't know, media attention,
fandom
to a victory. So yeah, I feel like this could be his year. He has to keep this up, obviously, and that would go a long way to keeping the Avs in contention too. So that'd be great.
Well, it's so funny. You guys mentioned the East Coast bias. You Ezra, you talk about him like maintaining this pace. Jacob, I want to hear your thoughts. And while you do that, I'm going to look and see how many national games the Avalanche have left on the schedule.
Yeah, I mean, for my money, Ed McKinnon is MVP right now. I do think that it would be kind of crazy to dismiss McDavid in the chase. Like Evan alluded to earlier, this is a narrative. McKinnon has done his time, so McKinnon is an attractive candidate from that standpoint. But Edmonton is the hottest team in the NHL. Like basically since we poured dirt on them early in November, they've lost 6 games. They've just been tearing the whole league apart. It hasn't been beefing up against cupcakes either. They just played San Jose and Anaheim for the first time this past week, and so. If Edmonton gets it together and McDavid finds himself, way ahead of everybody else in the points chase again, I could see the narrative shifting against McKinnon saying, hey, we all buried Edmonton. That looked like that, this was a disastrous season. And then McDavid just turned it on and dragged him, back to the top of the Pacific standings. So for me, that would be my biggest threat to McKinnon's chase.
Oh, man, I'm so glad that you bring that up, and I'm so glad that I looked into the national games because the Avalanche close the season. Their home closer will be against the Edmonton Oilers on April 18th, and that might be the topic of discussion is, it's the Hart showdown. You know what I mean? McKinnon, McDavid, same thing we did in the Western Conference Final a couple years ago, basically, but it'll be around the Hart Trophy. The Avs have a total of 8 national games, so pretty strong a majority of their nationally televised games ahead of them. Most of the ones that we've seen have been on TNT so far. They've had 5 on TNT, with 1 on TNT coming up against Vegas on January 10th. And then they've had, 2 on ESPN with the rest of their ESPN games ahead of them, including that Edmonton Oilers game. So if it is Connor McDavid, who much like McKinnon, when we talked about when he falls off, he's still scoring like 2 points a game. I think that same is true for McDavid. But I go back to what you pointed to, Evan, which is that the whole team is kind of struggling out there in Edmonton, and there's just kind of a feeling about that team this year that fans aren't necessarily all that excited about. But hey, that could, like Ezra points to, in the middle of the year, we find out that changes, and it might be all because Connor McDavid just went off, and now the Edmonton Oilers are contenders again like they've been in the past. So I guess we'll see how it goes. I, for one, am campaigning for Nathan McKinnon to win the Hart Trophy just because he's done his time. That might be the slogan. What do you guys think of that? McKinnon for Hart. He's done his time.
Yeah.
Put it on a shirt.
Yeah.
It'll be there with Mac Trick soon.
Yeah, Mac Trick. Yeah, we're coming up with them. And Cogliano tackled the guy.
Well, what a show for clips. It'll say Mac Trick, right, kind of like right here where my CSU logo is, and then on the back it'll say he's done his time.
Yeah. Hey, and by the way, Evan, I was not taking a shot at you by wearing this hat. It was a Christmas gift.
Oh no, I didn't think so. I didn't realize it until halfway through the show.
And you went, "Oh God, what's that gross thing on Adrian's head?" But if you don't know, folks, Evan is a Fort Collins alum, and I'm wearing a CU hat right now. Coincidentally, I'm also an alumni of CSU Pueblo, so maybe I'm the asshole right now. But with that said, I think this is a great time to end the show. And thank you 3, Evan, Ezra, and Jacob, for joining me. This has been a very fun one. We're starting to get kind of good at this, so let's keep it rolling. I'll see you guys next week to find out if your bold predictions were right. Ezra, congratulations on your first Breakaway Challenge victory. Great topic with Sam Gerard. Folks, if you enjoyed this broadcast, please head on over to X. Follow us at Mile High Hockey. You could also follow us at MHH_lab. Every single one of these episodes is available the following day after we do our live broadcast here on Twitch, YouTube, and Twitter, or X as it's now called. So thank you so much for listening, and go Avalanche as they look forward to playing the Dallas Stars tomorrow night. Go Avs, go.
Thank you for tuning into the Mile High Hockey Lab.
Sunset, take me